Today we're invited to go on a journey. If we read through the Gospel according to Luke, we'll find that Luke records a great deal of the teaching of Jesus while undertaking a journey. And there's one journey that is taken towards the end of the Gospel according to Luke. In Luke chapter 24, beginning at verse 13. Now on that same day, says Luke, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all the things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you walk along?" They stood still and looked sad. Then one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in these days?" He asked them, "What things?" They replied, "The things about Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since these things took place. Moreover, some women of our group astounded us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find the body there, they came back and told us that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see him." Then he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he was going on, but they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it's almost evening and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. When their eyes were opened and they recognized him, he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour they got up and returned to Jerusalem. And they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord is risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon." Then they told him what had happened on the road and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread. So Luke quite frequently takes us on the road. As we go through his gospel, we find that a journey begins Mary and Joseph's journey to Bethlehem. A road is the narrative setting of the parable of the Good Samaritan. The road leads the prodigal back home to his father. Jesus sets his eyes toward Jerusalem in Luke 9:51, and all the way through to chapter 19:28, everything is taken up by travelling. And this is known among scholars and commentators as the travel narrative, because in it we find some of the most distinctively looking contributions to the story of Jesus. The roads continue in Luke's second volume, the Book of Acts, where, for instance, Paul encounters the risen Jesus on his way to Damascus. There is something about travel that evokes Luke's literary and his theological imagination. There is something about roads, the way roads bring us together, the way roads can pose a danger to all of us, the way roads become a symbol of faith, a faith that is on the move. It's poignant then that the narrative of these two disciples on the road to Emmaus draws us to the conclusion of this third gospel record. And the story is a wonder of storytelling. There is irony, there is misunderstanding, there is drama, and of course at the end there is a reveal. These are all the components of a powerful story. Moreover, a number of Luke's themes are woven together in this travel story. There is table fellowship, there is hospitality, faithfulness, discipleship. So the scene on this road augurs the future of Christ's church in Luke's imagination. This will be a church on the move, set out by a Jesus who walks alongside us, even when we don't recognize him. But let's take a closer look at this narrative. The scene is set on the same day as the women's discovery of the empty tomb. We learn that two disciples are leaving Jerusalem to make the 7-mile journey to Emmaus. Why are they leaving Jerusalem? Do they fear for their lives now that Jesus has been executed? We don't really know. All Luke tells us is that they are grieved about their recent experience. They're talking to one another, hoping to make sense of what appears to be nonsensical, when Jesus himself walks alongside them and joins them on their journey. But notice there is a sentence right in verse 16, which any grammar checker would say, do you really want to include this? But their eyes were kept from recognizing him. Did you catch the passive voice there? This grammatical construction occludes the reason that they can't recognize Jesus. Were they so grieved by their experience and so sure that Jesus was gone that they simply didn't expect him? Did Jesus look different after the resurrection? Was perhaps his face transformed? Was Jesus wearing some kind of mask? We just don't know. Luke doesn't tell us. But then in a strikingly ironic moment, when Jesus asks these two disciples what they are discussing, they're quite incredulous. Who doesn't know what has been happening in Jerusalem these days? It was all over the news. It's the only topic of conversation amongst people in Jerusalem. Their dashed hopes are voiced in verse 21. We had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. had hoped. We invested our hopes in this Jesus, but he was not whom we had hoped he would be. In response to this rather dejected reply, Jesus outlines for them the meaning and the significance of his own death. Starting from Moses and the prophets, it was necessary that Jesus would suffer, die, and rise, and be lifted up into glory. Now the story takes one more twist. As they approach their destination, the two disciples notice that Jesus seems to be planning to keep walking. Where was he headed? Again, Luke leaves us in the dark. They exhort Jesus to stay with them. They offer hospitality to one whom they believe is a stranger. They offer to be hosts to this traveling companion, to this new friend. But as soon as the table is set, Jesus upends the expected social roles. He becomes the host, and he does so by blessing the bread and sharing it. Now, remember, they still don't know who they are dining with. They still don't know that they are dining with Jesus once again. They don't recognize that their dashed hopes are restored in the resurrection body of this stranger. But when Jesus does the most Jesus thing of all, everything changes. I wonder what we think is the most characteristic activity of Jesus. When we imagine Jesus in our minds, what is he doing? For many, they would say, well, I imagine him on the cross. For many, he may be preaching to a crowd. For many, he may be healing the sick with the touch of his hand. For many, he may be enthroned at the right hand of God. For Luke, however, Jesus is most Jesus at a dinner table, at an ordinary meal infused with significance because of the people gathered around the food. Jesus is there at this table, but also all the sinners and tax collectors with whom Jesus shared meals. But not only that, also at this table are the more powerful people with whom Jesus also dined. One of the most characteristic activities of Jesus' ministry in the Gospel of Luke is eating. Was he not accused earlier in the Gospel of being a glutton and a drunkard back in chapter 7? But worse than that, he eats with all the wrong people. So it's instructive that it's not his teaching that opens their eyes. It's not his presence that brought a revelation to these two people. It is his sharing of bread with his friends in his blessing of food. In this sharing of bread at an ordinary table, we catch a glimpse of Jesus' transformative kingdom. In Luke, eating is a radical act because it breaks down cultural boundaries. In Luke, the resurrected Jesus shares that bread once again with his followers, and in feeding them, Jesus opens their eyes, helping them to see that Jesus was with them the whole time. Jesus continues to feed us in very many different ways. Our eyes so often fail to perceive him, but he is with us the whole time.